In this video, I'm going to show you how you can dynamically change the highest and lowest value in any Power BI visual that has conditional formatting, and you don't need a single DAX measure for this. So no calculated columns, no complex logic, just conditional formatting, a few clicks, and it works almost everywhere where you have conditional formatting. So for example, on your bar charts, in your table, and so on. Before I show it in Power BI, I want to shortly explain how it works. The way it works is not that complicated. When you set up conditional formatting in Power BI, you can basically define a color for the minimum value and the maximum value. And these values in Power BI are 0 and 100%. So 0% is the lowest value and 100% is the highest value. And that's dynamic. So if you have a filter, for example, for year, and in different years you have different minimum and maximum values, Power BI will actually define, based on the filter context, the minimum and maximum value. And that means it's fully dynamic. The moment you change a filter or select a different year, Power BI knows what to format with conditional formatting. So let's go into Power BI. Here we are in Power BI, and here you see a column chart where I actually already applied the conditional formatting. And you see, if I go on my filter and I select a different year, you see now in April we have the lowest value, and in March we have the highest value. And if I go to 2025, you see my highest value was in October and the lowest in January. And we can go to 2024 and it's also applied. So it's very, very dynamic. So how to do that? I will show you. Let's click on my visual and go to my column settings in the format pane. So I go to format and columns, and here I take away the conditional formatting I have applied, so you know how it looks like without. It looks like this, very blue. So how can we do that? I click on conditional formatting, the FX button here. And here it says, do you want it to be rule-based, gradient, or field value? And we want rule-based in this case. And now I select my measure that I want this to be based on, sum of hours. And now, instead of saying bigger than or lower, we can say if value is 0%. We want it to be red. Let's see what happens only if we choose this. You see, the lowest value is now red. Let's go to a different year. You see, it works. Let's go back to conditional formatting again. And now we add another rule where we say 100%. And that should be green. Let's do that. You see, now we have the green, but now everything else is still very blue. How can you fix that? You don't need to do this for like every percent. I show you the trick. Let's go back there, add a new rule. And we're basically saying if it's bigger than or 0% and lower than or 100, I want this to be gray. And now you click on these little arrows and move this as the first rule, because Power BI looks at this like rule based. It looks at the first rule, then the second rule, and then the third rule. And we say in the first rule, we want everything to be gray. Everything between 0 and 100%, that's everything in Power BI. We want to be gray. And then we have the second rule, which overrules the first rule, and so on. So let's see what happens here. Now we have everything formatted like I wanted it to be formatted. And you see, these are actual values. These are not percentages. A lot of people are confused there, like, does it only work if my numbers are also percentages? No. The 0 and 100% just tells Power BI to go and look for the highest and lowest value. And you don't need to have percentages in your visual. This can be actual numbers like this. And that's really all that there is to it. It's really just a few clicks in conditional formatting where you say, I want 0% and 100%, and Power BI knows, let's look for the highest and lowest value. And you also saw in my example that if there is no data for a few months, that's also not highlighted. Power BI will really look at the lowest value. If you found this useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and drop me a comment, because I'm very curious what you think about this video, and if it helped you, let me know. Thank you for watching this.